Welcome to Communication, Connection, Community, the Podcaster's Podcast. This podcast takes a deep dive into modern-day communication strategies in the podcasting space. We chat with interesting people who make the podcasting and speaking spaces exciting and vibrant. We also dive into the podcasting community with news, updates, latest trends and topics from this ever-evolving space. So strap in. It's going to be one amazing ride. Let's dive into today's episode. When I started my podcast in 2019, it was partly out of necessity, but also because I realized that I could make a difference. I'd already done a lot of research figuring out about, are there shows like this that are out there? How can I have impact for people who are wanting to improve their speaking? At that time, my podcast was all about speaker training and helping people be better on stage, be better with voice and volume and content, all those kinds of things. And then the podcast evolved. And I think that was the biggest thing that I realized is podcasting is an evolution. It's like business. There's an evolution in business. There's an evolution in podcasting as well. Our guest today was on the front lines, not very early, but certainly within the last 7 years when she launched her podcast. Jen Hardy is her name. She's the CEO of Hardy House Media and a serial content creator. She's the host of the fabulous Over 50 podcast, which is a 2-time Podcast of the Year winner. The podcast celebrates the humor, challenges, and the joys of aging. Her YouTube channel, The Jen Hardy Show, has garnered over 2.5 million views, and that was just in its first 8 months. So huge congratulations to that. I'm sure we'll be talking to Jen about how she got to those numbers and how it's been for her. She's earned 2 community partners managers through YouTube, and she recently won Broadcast of the Year with the Women in Podcast Awards. She's a sought-after podcast guest, a very successful podcast host, and an avid blogger as well. Jen, welcome to the podcast.
Oh my gosh, Carl. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so thrilled you're here, and congratulations on all that success. When we start talking about 2 million or 2.5 million views or downloads or whatever, people's ears perk up and go, huh? How did that happen? So
that is a good question.
And there's a longer answer to that. I'm not going to throw you the bone and say, hey, how'd that happen? Boom, away you go. We'll get into that step by step here. But of all the things that you could have done, because you've been podcasting for, at the recording of this episode, it's January 2025. You've been podcasting for, is it 6 years now?
Almost exactly 6 years.
What led you to podcasting? Of all the things 6 years ago you could have been doing, what made you sit up and say, hey, podcasting, I'm going to take you by storm?
I did a completely different thing that I'm doing now. So I have 7 children. And I also have health issues, and there wasn't a lot out there for moms with health issues, kind of everyone's dirty little secret. And I thought, we need to shed some light on this. I was bedridden for a while and in a wheelchair, and parenting 7 children and homeschooling them wasn't easy. So I had put together a lot of systems to make it work. And I thought, these need to be shared. And the one way I could do that was podcasting. So I actually had a hospital table next to my bed, and I set up a little boom arm and a microphone in my computer and did it right from there.
Wow. Which is phenomenal unto itself. And it's funny that you mentioned, it's not funny, I mean, the health issues. Most people think of mom as the cure for all health issues, not thinking that mom is the one that's going to be having the health issues. So kudos to you for taking something that was, very important and tumultuous in your life and creating a system and realizing that this is something that needs to be shared and needs to be out there.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it really does. But after several years of doing it, it really got to me, because here's a lesson in there. When you talk about being sick all the time, you feel sicker. And I realized I had to stop. I had all the information out that I needed to get out. I had 120 episodes. And I didn't shut down that podcast. I just rebranded it. So those episodes are still there, but now it's Fabulous Over 50 because I needed to celebrate something. And can I tell you and your audience, I feel 10 times better talking about being fabulous than I did talk about being sick. There is a lot to do with mindset.
And I'm glad we're talking about this, because I always say the mind is a terrible thing to waste, or is it a waste is a terrible thing to mind. But anyways, the mind is just, we put so much garbage into it. And even podcasters, which is one of the reasons why we do what we do here at Podcast Solutions Made Simple, is because we want to make sure that we're giving you not only the right information, but helping you with the mindset to understand that whether it's a podcast, whether it's a business, whatever it is, that you want to do it with the right intention whatever is, they say the longest distance traveled is, or the hardest distance traveled is ear to ear. You want to make sure that this thing in your noggin is sound, or you're taking the steps to make it sound. Otherwise, it's just going to be a continuous struggle all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And find positive things to focus on, because that's what has kept me going, honestly. Yeah. You absolutely have to.
Full disclosure, one of the things that, and speaking of health being very important in mindset, and this is just a personal note, and I do want to find out more about your journey through podcasting. On a personal note, I haven't slept in 5 years, or at least that's what my sleep therapy says. I haven't done much of in the last 5 years. But man, now that I'm in that therapy place and getting the help that I need, I'm sleeping better. I feel better. I have better concentration. I have better mindset. I have better clients. I have all these things that are happening because my health has improved. So don't let your health wane, and keep the mind healthy as well, and do whatever you need to do that. So kudos to you for doing that. When you started your podcasting journey, of course, you hit that first, 2 million downloads overnight, right? It happened within your first 10 episodes.
Oh yeah. It was so easy. I just picked up a mic and just people flocked to me because, no, that is not how it happened. I know it's funny because people are like, oh, it's an overnight success. It is not. It was actually 10 years in the making. I started blogging 10 years ago and learning. And if you look at I've left my social media up. It was so ugly. It was so bad. I got some days 1 view on my website, some days 5 views on my website. Being a creator is not a sprint. It is definitely a long game. So if you're listening, don't get sad if you just have low numbers in the beginning, because you're building the foundation. That's how I look at it. You've got to have a solid foundation before you build the house. And your first couple of years are that foundation that, you need to set and learn where you want to go and how you're going to do it and what your style is. And the things that you thought were so important in the beginning may not turn out to be what's important to you later.
I like how you said that it's not a sprint. It is a long game, because so many people think of it as, I'm going to launch a podcast. I'm going to be this overnight success. I'm going to have I quite often refer to it as like the Justin Bieber effect. I will be discovered instantaneously. Someone's going to throw a boatload of money at me, and I'm going to have the next big sought after podcast, Joe Rogan type, maybe not the same content, but that hugely successful show that people are just going to want to invest in. It doesn't usually happen that way. It is a journey. And part of that journey is you really getting in tune with, what's your show about? What's the purpose of your show? Why are you even doing this podcasting thing? A few things that you need to do right off the top.
Absolutely. And you can start off with millions of downloads in the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Do you know how? If you're totally famous. And there you go. Yeah. But if you have a name, right? But the rest of us, we just need to do our time. But the nice thing is you still get to do it. And that's the beautiful thing about podcasting, right? Anybody can do it. So, you come up with your plan, you have your idea, you just get started and do what you're going to do. And the rest will come.
It's a lower barrier of entry now, too, than it was when you were starting 6 years ago, because firstly, doing video 6 years ago was almost, I don't want to say impossible, but it was the big shows that were doing it, because it was massive production investment to do that. And microphones were, they existed, but they weren't like what they are today. It's a lower barrier of entry. Even editing podcasts now, a lot of it's done with a lot of AI tools. People are embracing AI a little differently. It's more prevalent than it was even 2 years ago, let alone 6 years ago. So it's a different game. But you definitely need to, I think, look at the fact that, and I'm glad you mentioned this, that Oprah Winfrey, if I can use her as an example, I don't know how many podcast shows or extension shows that she has, but a lot of her dues were paid in her early years when people were telling her she'd never make it as a journalist. She'd never be successful in that space. And then she went on to become this very successful woman, having the successful network, successful television show. It didn't happen. So if you're in that spot where I'm not famous, or even if you do have a fairly robust network, or what you think is a robust network, it still might be a journey for you. It still might be, Jen, as you mentioned, it might be that 2-year journey. So your sprint will be 2 years, which is not a sprint. It's more of a long game. Things that you've learned along the way, from the first show to pivoting the show, things that you've learned let's say the top three things that you've learned as you've been growing the show and growing your credibility in the space.
Okay. Number one, people are going to tell you all kinds of things about how they can make you successful. And if you use either one of these, we'll just edit this out. Anyone who tells you that they are going to 10x anything, you need to leave. Anyone who tells you you're going to make six figures with your podcast, you just walk away. It's like, right, I can get you six figures in the first 6 months. When I started, several people told me that. Oh, if you just pay my thing, if you just join my course, if you just do whatever, you'll get six figures in 6 months. Those are lies. Unless you're famous, your podcast is not going to make you six figures. Now, your business may make you six figures, and your podcast may lead people to your business. And that is a brilliant idea. But that's number one, I think. And it just pains me to watch new podcasters hear those things. Number two, just start, just do it, just get going. There's no amount of setup that's going to prepare you for podcasting. I mean, a little bit, yes, do a little research, but don't wait years. I know people that have waited years for everything to be perfect. It's like having kids. Never going to be perfect. Just, do it. And number three, be patient. Don't live and die by those numbers. It's hard not to. It is really hard not to, but just do it. And after a couple of years, if you have 0 listens, then reconsider. But if people are listening, even 50 people, that is a room full of people that you're talking to. So don't get disheartened when other people say things. And can I say, Carl, sometimes other people, embellish their own numbers, and then it makes us feel bad. So you don't know what someone's real numbers are unless you see them yourself.
Oh my goodness. So I'm making notes because that's typically what I do, because I do want to respond to these, but scribbling things down and going, yep. And these are things we've talked about on the show. But every now and again, I'll have people who have listened to the show and they'll reach out and they'll say, so I want to start a podcast. So how do I get to six figures overnight? Or how do I get those 1 million downloads or those 10,000 downloads a month? It's like, well, firstly, let's one step at a time. I totally agree with the whole, hey, if you just give me a boatload of money, basically everything you've ever made, put it in a big bag and send it to me. I'll get you to six figures, 7 figures with your podcast overnight.
Let me tell you what, you know how people get six figures for their podcast? They sell people how to get six figures for their podcast. That is how they do it. And my husband and I laugh every time we see it because I don't know. It's a lot.
But to your point, if you already have some celebrity status, you're already famous. Yes, of course, you are very well positioned to monetize, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about monetization of a podcast. Now, think about this logically. You're fairly new in business, not you, Jen, but if you're listening, you're fairly new in business. Even if you're 6 years, 10 years in, that's still fairly new. You're not necessarily internationally famous. Do you think that 10,000 listeners are going to find you overnight, or will it take some time to get those listeners? Not only that, think about this logically. What if you could get in front of, and I'm glad you mentioned this, Jen, is that what if 50 people is the magic number for you? Because the nice thing about podcasting is we can streamline it so much or have it so niche that the 50 people you're talking to, those are the 50 people, or those are the 75 people, or even the 35 people who you need to talk to right at this moment in time to help you build your show. Those are the ones who are going to end up doing business with you, following you, becoming a part of your network that will help you grow and expand.
Exactly.
And I know we're on the same page on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard for people to wrap their brain around because they hear all these other numbers, but yeah.
And understand that if people do have those numbers, they didn't start with those numbers. Speaking of starting, I have a colleague who actually purchased a Podbean account. I'm going to say somewhere around 2017, still pays for it every month. And I'll tell you what they've done with it. Nothing. So they're paying for an account they haven't done anything with, but they're still saying, I should do that podcasting thing. But to your point, Jen, but I want it to be perfect. It will never be perfect. It will never, ever, ever be perfect. As a matter of fact, I quite often will use the analogy, the definition of perfection is a series of imperfections. And I take music as an example. When you listen to some of the most beautiful music on the planet that's been written over the last several hundred years, you strip it down and you put two, I don't know how musical you are, Jen, but you put two notes together that should never be together, it sounds horrible. But you put everything else around it, all of a sudden, oh, now it starts to sound better. So the definition of perfection is a lot of imperfection that leads into it. So I'm going to say allow yourself to be imperfect and just start, because it will never be perfect. It'll never be as good as you expect or want it to be, because there will always be something else to make it better. Would you agree with that, that you should always be the next level?
Absolutely. And as you're doing something, you're growing and learning, right? So I don't know any podcasters, even the top podcasters that I've talked to, they are embarrassed by their first couple episodes. And most of them leave them up just so that people can see where they've come from, right? But because you don't know what you don't know, and you won't know those things until you start. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, start. Definitely start. Patience. I quite often say I wouldn't make a very good doctor because I don't have enough patience. There's a play on words there, but you definitely need to be patient in this space, because firstly, understand, and as you're learning from Jen, that Jen's podcast has evolved. Your podcast will evolve as you're launching, as you're growing. But then also the podcast industry has evolved from when Jen started, from when I started, from when I met a guy by the name of, I don't know if you know him, Sam Crowley. Have you met Sam Crowley? Sam Crowley has a show called Every Day is Saturday, and he's been doing podcasting since podcasts were in diapers. So probably around 2005, 2006, something like that. Started a show, but the thing is that he stuck with it. And one of the things that he shared is that, you know what, you really have to stay the course. And the reason why he's successful is because he's consistent with it. He puts content out all the time. And yes, does he have a good following? Yes. Those first few episodes, though, if you could go scroll all the way through his catalog and listen to them, they weren't that great. They really weren't. You know what? He's stuck with it, and that's what's happened. And numbers are what numbers are. I attune it to, as a speaker, and I think you'll appreciate this, Jen. If I could guarantee you, Jen, that I could get you in front of 50 people every week, and that's your ideal audience, and there's a good chance that, let's say, even 2 or 3 of them will end up being clients with you. Would you take me up on that offer?
That's a pretty good offer, isn't it?
It's a pretty good offer. But when we start talking about it in podcasting numbers, people go, 50 downloads. So that's nothing. I don't want 50. I want 5,000 downloads. I want that. But Jen, if you don't mind me asking you, and again, your numbers are showing a huge success, but what was the turning point for you? What was it that you started to see these larger numbers and this huge traction start to take root? Where was that turning point? Because it clearly wasn't within the first week or 2 or in the first 5 episodes. Where was it?
But that's a good question. Okay, so about 4 years in, but I started growing my presence like online, right? Really growing it. Started speaking in places, started doing different things, got my name out there. Because really, we have things in the physical world, right? You and me, we go to in-person meetings, we do all these things. But then we've got this whole internet life that we lead, right? If there was no electricity, that life would be taken away. So anything that's out there, a lot of it is Google. A lot of it is search, right? A lot of it is, if Google doesn't know who you are, people aren't finding you. So if you think about that, and this is a new thing for me since I've been on YouTube, and YouTube is also a search engine, which people don't realize a lot of times, but you need to position yourself to be out there and doing things so that you're kind of all over the place, right? If you have a business and you have a website, you need link backs to you need links to your website from other people and all those things. And so you start growing and building all of that. And then you become higher up on the search, and then when people look for you, everything comes up, right? Your podcasts and everything else. And just being engaging with people and letting them know you have a show is surprising. And speaking of that, because people assume that their family and friends are all going to listen. And right there, you've got 50 downloads. Carl, how many of your family and friends listen to your show? You might not want to answer that. Well, I'll tell you how many of mine. None.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
And even my husband didn't listen. And I will tell you a story. We were watching a show about you take the chicken, Julia Child. I have to say that phrase and then I can do it. Okay. So there was a thing about her, and she started the show, and her husband wouldn't even watch. He wouldn't even watch. He wouldn't watch. And I was watching that with my husband, and my husband's like, what a jerk. What a horrible husband. Why doesn't he even watch her show? And this was last year. I had been podcasting for 5 years. And I said, hey, babe, how many of my episodes have you listened to? And his face fell because he didn't. So after that, he started listening. But I'm telling you, so that's the thing, is that you can't rely on those people that you think are the people that are going to listen. So you have to get out there, be a guest on other people's show, have other people on your show that, they won't always help promote it. They maybe usually won't help promote it, but that's okay, and be sure that you're out there so that people can find you.
And this is why it's a long game, not a short game, because there isn't a set pattern or system or methodology to do this, because it's still the Wild West in the podcasting space. Even though it's been around over 20 years, there's still a lot of, trailblazing that can be done. But to Jen's point, though, you should be guesting on other shows. You should be, and don't rely on those. She said, don't rely on family and friends to listen to your show, because quite often they won't. And if they're a friend, there's a good chance that if they're probably a colleague first and then a friend, right? Somebody you've known a while that you can say, hey, we're friends, but we actually met through business. And those are the folks who are probably more likely listening to your show. And also understand that, as I said, this doesn't happen overnight, but it doesn't happen by just wishing on a star. There are some steps you need to take, things you need to do. You need to make it an intention that, for example, if you want to guest on more shows, don't just say it and do nothing about it. Say, you know what? I want to guest on 12 shows this year, 20 shows this year, a show a week, whatever it is, and do it. Because if you just say it, goal setting 101, if you just say it and don't write it down and don't take the steps to do it, it will not happen.
Absolutely. Action. Action is the word of the day. Yes.
Yeah. What would you do differently if you were starting out today?
That's a really good question. Honestly, personally, I would probably do a lot the way I did it, but I didn't do it like a lot of other people do. So start with what you've got. Start cheap. Because how many people pod fade, right? So many people pod fade after 3 episodes. A lot of people think you have to go out and spend thousands of dollars and buy all the equipment and do all the things, and then they hate it. So start, see if you like it, fall in love with it, then make those decisions. I think people get hung up with the mic thing way too much. That is not your number one thing. Quality content is your number one thing. So do your research, find out who wants to know what you want. The one thing, what I totally do different, one thing, absolutely, getting back to Google and searching. Find out, what are people searching for? Go to trends.google.com, go to whatever, and what are they looking for? And make sure you're answering the questions that people are asking with your podcast. Now, you may have a real niche podcast. It may be only, 200 people are asking that question, and that's fine. But what is the question, or what are the questions? Answer those. If you're just randomly putting stuff out, you can do that, but you're going to be found less often.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head. We can't stress enough that Google, being the powerhouse that it is, that we really need to figure out, how is it that we're being searched for, but what is it that people are wanting? And again, if you don't know how to do this, find someone or have someone on your team who can help you figure this out. Because I think by the time you're coming into the podcasting space, you probably have at least a VA that can help you do this. If you're fairly new in business, don't even consider podcasting. You don't need a podcast. You need clients. That's what you need when you're first starting out, right? You need clients. Then you can start figuring out, okay, well, I want to market to the right people. Then you can start looking at podcasting, and then you can start doing the things that Jen just mentioned. But you definitely, I think, need to do that. So kudos to you for looking at it and saying, yeah, I would definitely look at the Google side of things and ask myself that question. Another question for you. Not that I like to itemize my questions or anything, as I just did. Podcasting has evolved a lot since you got in it, since I got into it. Where do you see it headed in the next, let's say, 2 to 5 years? In your experience and in the success that you've had, where do you see podcasts going, either for you personally or as a whole, or both?
So I'm really torn about my answer because it makes me sad. Because to me, a podcast is something that you listen to on your phone or with earbuds. It is audio. That is what a podcast is in my head, but it is evolving to video. And I believe that it will mostly be consumed by video, unfortunately. honestly, unfortunately. Because what the great thing is about podcasts is you can do it while you're cleaning the house. You can do it while you're running. You can do it while you're driving. You can listen to podcasts anywhere. And I think there is such a beauty in that. But I think because of shorts on YouTube and TikTok and all these things, people are used to just these constant images shifting in their eyesight, right? They just have to, and it feeds this need for your brain to see these things. And I think it's moving to video. And I can tell you, I hate sharing numbers. I hate it so much, but I will share just this month's numbers just to give you an example. My podcast that I have had forever. Its numbers used to be in the thousands. They're now down to the hundreds. But my video podcast on YouTube is over 200,000 a month. So, that's what people want. So not only though, and I would not stop audio podcasting. Do not stop audio podcasting because the people that really need to listen, and especially business people, they're busy. They are busy. They're not the ones scrolling. So if you're trying to target those people, and even if you do a video podcast, it needs to be also audio. I think that's my personal whatever. But I think a lot of it's going to go to video.
You are speaking my language. I am feeling your pain exactly the same way. I mean, again, I spent 25 years in radio broadcasting, so my love is audio. It has been forever. My love is music, which is an audio medium. But you're right. A lot of things are shifting to video, but I always say without audio, there is no video. So you might be thinking, oh, video, 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 but think about it. If you were to strip away the audio from your video and only have the video, you would not have a podcast or a video series. You would only have your face doing different contortions while your lips move around. So always think about there is always audio. And what's interesting, though, as we piggyback on this, even though people are engaging in podcasts more on YouTube, because YouTube, yes, it's a search engine, but it's also a massive directory of files. Let's face it. Let's break it down to nuts and bolts. That's what it is. It's a massive directory, lots of files. Interesting to note that most people, even though they're engaging YouTube for their podcast engagement, a lot of people aren't watching the video. They're listening. So they have the YouTube on, or they've called up YouTube on their phone, and they're going for their run or their walk, or they're making the meal or whatever it is with YouTube on, but they're not focused on the video. So to your point, definitely keep doing the audio rather. I believe that there will be this is maybe a prayer, maybe a hope, that there will be a resurgence or a bit of a rebirthing of the audio, because I think you're right. We are so busy and we're so pressed for time. And we don't necessarily need the visual all the time, but we do need that interaction that can be engaged. One of the reasons I got into podcasting was because of its portability. So video is not as portable as audio. So think of it as from a portability standpoint. And I like how you mentioned too, like if you're working with, high-level CEOs, they're not watching your content. They're listening.
They're not on YouTube. They don't have time to watch videos. Are you kidding me?
If they are engaging in content, it's on another platform. So don't dismiss audio. So thank you so much. We're on the same page on that, even though it's to our benefit, but also to our dismay, shall we say,
yes,
that the audio is being eroded. But I still think that we have to think about it. Audio is probably the most crucial part of a podcast. Even if it is a video podcast, the audio is still probably the most important part.
Well, and if you think about it, things are cyclical, right? Think about records. What we called records, people now call vinyl. For 30 years, they weren't cool, and now they're back. So don't stop posting your audio podcast, because then when it comes back in, guess what? You're going to have hundreds of episodes that people can, and to your point, the high level people, they're not sitting there. They don't have hours to spend on YouTube. If that's your target, you definitely want to get it in audio.
They have staff that's scouring YouTube for them.
Yes.
Basically is what we're saying there. Oh my goodness, Jen, I could talk to you forever, but I think it's just a reason to check in again 6 months to a year from now and say, hey, what's new with you? And continue to celebrate our success. I say us because we're both being in the trenches, successful in what we do. How can people reach out to you, though? What's the best way for people to connect with you, to learn and engage, whether it be your podcast or YouTube channel or what have you? What's the best way to do that?
If they just go to my website, everything's right there on the homepage. They can find anything they want. It's jenhardy.net, N-E-T. Someone stole the com. That's fine. Jenhardy.net.
And we'll make sure that's posted in the show notes for you to check that out. Before I turn you loose, Jen, to go either record another episode or do something phenomenal, I'll give you the final thought.
Ooh, the final thought. Okay, here's the deal. If you want to start a podcast, start it. And right now, people don't want pretty, beautiful content creation. They want to hear you. It does not have to be a $1 million production. Just get it going. If you've started and your numbers are low, but you have numbers, you're winning because people are listening and you just keep going and learn from what you're doing. And if you are growing and everything is huge, congratulations. It took a lot to get there and we're proud of you.
That's a great way to leave it. Jen Hardy, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for letting me be here. It's been amazing.
And hey, thank you for being a part of the show today. So glad you could join us. Believe it or not, I can't work this magic by myself. So thanks to my amazing team, our audio engineer, Dom Carillio, our sonic branding genius, Kenton Dilborowski, and the person who works the arms, all of our arms actually, our project manager and my trusty assistant, Jillavel Tiongo, known to us here simply as July. If you like what you heard today, let us know. You can leave us a comment or review or even send us a voice note. And if you really liked it, we hope you'll share it with your friends and your colleagues. If you don't like what you heard today, well, please feel free to share it with your enemies. And if you know of someone who would make a great guest on the show, let us know about it. You can get in touch with us by going to our show notes where all of our connection points are there, including the links to our website, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well. And if you're ready to be a guest on podcasts or even start your own show, let's have a conversation. We'll show you the simplest way to get into the podcasting space and rock it. Because, after all, we're Podcast Solutions Made Simple. Catch you again next time.